You're listening to the Silicon Valley Podcast.
Paul, I'm super excited to have you on this week's episode of the Silicon Valley Podcast. Now, for our audience, I've known Paul, he's probably of all the guests I've had on the show, I've known Paul the longest. So hopefully we'll go on some great stories. But Paul, I know about your career, I know about yourself, but can you tell our audience a little bit about your history, a little bit about your career up until this point?
Absolutely. And thanks for having me, Sean. I've been watching what episode is this? Like 100?
It'll be like 175, something like that.
That's kudos. So as far as my career, I would say it's not the typical path one would take to where I sit today. I grew up mostly in Southern California, and after a very short stint in playing football in college, realized I wasn't going to be a football player, and then I was, what am I going to be when I grow up? I wasn't really sure. My sister had moved to Northern California, so I came to visit, and I ended up moving up here. The cliff notes after that was I ended up meeting a guy who was doing this lifelong journey, this planned trip up to Alaska. His father had a friend that worked in a cannery or ran a cannery out of Seward, Alaska. And he was going to drive up, camp all the way up, drive up through Canada and all the way up to this place in Seward. And the goal was, if you work really well, when the boat guys need deckhands or what have you, they would come to the cannery and get the best workers. And so I ended up piggybacking with him on that trip. We took 2 weeks and drove all the way up, and I would recommend that to anybody. It's awesome. I mean, you get up through up northern Canada, up through the Yukon Territory, and it's just vast, and it just goes on forever. It's just so beautiful. Along the trip, there was a place called the Liard River, which had hot springs, and we stopped there. Met an old timer who was coming down from Alaska, and we were sitting around a campfire, just talking stories. And he heard what we were doing, and he said, "Hey, if you ever get to, you actually make it up to Seward, go find Rosie at the Fishing Company of Alaska. She'll tell her I sent you. She'll take care of you." So we finished the night, finished our drive, got up to Anchorage. We did as we were told by the guy. Call them when you get to Anchorage, and they'll tell us what to do from there. He'd been running that cannery for over 20 years. He got fired in the 2 weeks that we were driving up. You got two guys in Anchorage with a Toyota truck with windsurfers on it, because we did surf in the windsurf in the Gulf of Alaska, just to say we did it. And we were like, now what? Because I think we had like $220 to our name. And so we went like any logical person would do. We went to a bar to figure it out. And actually before that, we went to a youth hostel, and the thing was stacked to the rims with people looking for work. And we were like, uh-oh. So then we were sitting in this bar, just literally like, what are we going to do? And pulled out a map back in the day when you actually had a folded up map. And we were just, okay, we have, we were doing the math. Okay, we have $220. We can get this much gas. We can go, this is our radius. What are we going to do? And anyway, we drove to Seward and found the Fishing Company of Alaska, because I had remembered sitting at that bar. What was the name of that lady that old guy told us? And so we drove to Seward, and this town was, I don't know if you've ever seen the show Northern Exposure, an old show in Alaska, but it was like, dirt road town with, one big building, which was the general store, the hospital, the post office, and the hotel. And then that's very much like this town was at the time. And found the Fishing Company of Alaska, walked in, and it was like any other office. It was very trippy, because you're up there in very rugged Alaska, and then you walk in, and it was like walking into a dentist office in Concord. It was very trippy. And walked in, and I said, it was a receptionist with the desk, and I said, "Hi, we're here to see Rosie." And she said, "Oh, you must be Mark and John." And I grabbed my buddy's hand. Yeah, we are. So she came out and got us a few minutes later. We went and talked about the job on the boat, and literally we're getting ready to fill out waivers and forms when I said, and she was a tough lady. Let's just say that. I wouldn't want to get in a brawl with her. And I told her what, I said, I got to come clean, I'm Paul and this is Dawn, and she just buckled over laughing, slapping her. Oh my God. And so she said, those losers didn't show up. The job is yours. So like 4 hours later, we're on a boat and I ended up doing that for 3 long summers. After that, so I was doing the Alaska thing. I wasn't intending to do it more than 1 year, but I made a bunch of loot. Went down to Mexico. I had a place outside of, the place that I stayed in outside of Cabo, about 7 miles, and basically played volleyball and surfed and had fun every day for the rest of the year. They found me and called me and enticed me back up there with more money and stuff. And so I went back up, and again, they did it for a third time. And after the third time I was down in Mexico, and I was like, I got to get a life. This is great, but I got to get a life. So I literally planted myself in the middle of San Francisco, not knowing anybody. Bought myself a motorcycle. That's what I drove, and got an apartment and just started driving around looking for stuff to do. And at the time, the only work besides fishing was restaurants. And so I happened upon this place in the marina here in San Francisco, and they were in the middle of a build out, and kind of talked my way into the gig and ended up doing restaurant stuff here for my first 10 years. From there, which was great. I mean, it was a great way to get connected. It just happened to be the most popular place in San Francisco for a good 7-8 year run. And after that, a friend was starting an outdoor media company just kind of by happen chance, and I ended up doing that with him, and we scaled that company over the course of 4 or 5 years to I think there was about 47 locations throughout the city. It was an outdoor media company, meaning you put like stickers on the sides of big buildings. And that company was acquired. And that was kind of my first vision into that world. And after that, I was kind of figuring out what to do next. And I ended up at BTI, Matt, or business team. Matt Cohen was a great guy. And I was helping him do some stuff there, and got to see what these guys did from the inside out. And it just seemed super interesting to me. You get to see how people create wealth, see how people are successful in business. You checked a lot of the boxes with, you get to learn new stuff. You get to help people, be of service. Somewhat immediate gratification if you're lucky.
Well, you still haven't said what BTI does. And what you were doing.
It was a Main Street brokerage, and so it was owner operator. Everything from the mechanic shop to the corner deli to lower middle market transactions. So it was definitely where I cut my teeth, and I met some good people there. One fellow right across the table from me here. I don't even know how long ago that was.
2014, maybe.
Wow, that's going back a spell. Yeah. So I ended up there, enjoying it enough to stay for, I don't know, almost 10 years, and ended up managing the office and took it over. And natural maturation, you want to work on larger and larger deals. And the reality is that the broker has a bad connotation to it, unfortunately. And so we were feeling somewhat inhibited by that association. So myself and a partner started a lower middle market firm focusing on truly the lower middle market, like $5 to $25 million type transactions. These were, a size of business that we felt were, underserved by typical PEs or investment banks, because it just flies under the radar, right? It's particularly at that time. I think nowadays people are going downstream a bit more, but and then it was, for the Main Street guys, it was some of them could do it as far as the process. They had the knowledge to do the transaction, but they didn't have the network, because you really need the buyer network in order to be successful there. So we hit the ground running in it, and it was quite successful from day one, because it was as I've learned now, the keyword product market fit. We found a product market fit, and that was a good run. After that, I got coursed into. I was doing some consulting for a fitness franchise. It was a relatively new startup, and a good friend of mine was an early investor, and he asked if I could help out the CEO with some stuff on the West Coast. And so I was introduced to this fascinating guy who literally started like the fit. I mean, what the fitness industry is today. He started back in the 70s, back in New York. and just an old, like, intellectual hippie guy, but, at heart. And so he's a super interesting guy. Consulted with him for a few months at the end of 2019 being the key timeline there. And it was October 2019, and he we enjoyed working with each other. And he said, "Why don't entice me to come on board?" And I did, to help him scale, raise some capital, scale, and it was like a 2-3 year plan. 3 weeks later, COVID. So fitness and COVID, I quickly learned, don't play well together. And so the job changed from scaling and raising capital to triage and saving the company. And as I joke, after I quit hitting, once the blood dried from me smashing my face against the wall saying, "What did I just do?" I realized that I was in a position to be of service to these. There was 35 locations open, 33 of which these franchisees had no business running a franchise. They were great fitness people, but they got, they were sold the franchise. Literally, it was a great salesman. And it was unfortunate because they were already on, thin ice. And then you throw forced closure, landlords still wanting to get paid. And it was not a good scene. So that in addition to, we were across, how many 7, 8 different states. So different states, you had your federal regulations, you had your state regulations, county, city. So it was a thing to figure out for sure. But we did, and only had to close a couple locations. So I stuck it out for 13 months, and then we parted ways because it wasn't what I signed up for. But we stabilized the organization, and I wish them well to this day. I was fried because we'd grinded hard on that, to do that job. And I was just going to take 6 months off, and had some work to do on the house. I have 3 young kids, spend time with the family, and just figure out the next thing. And I had my eye on an RV. I wanted to, my wife laughs at me. That's my guilty pleasure. RVs are so awesome. But I don't have one yet. I'm going to be like John Madden when I'm 70, just driving around in a tricked out RV. So anyway, I was going to take, a big chunk of time off and kind of recalibrate. And I got about 2-3 weeks into that break. And I was looking for a receipt in my old Hotmail account from something. It's like I had the Hotmail account because grandma, that's what she used, she's passed, but I just always held it on. That's like the dummy account, the burner. And so I went into this Hotmail, and there was this, the emails that we all get. Hey, come work for me. Hey, check this out. I never look at them. I never open them. But for some reason, this time I did. I clicked on it, and it was just enticing enough. I was, and I responded to it, and back and forth started. I hadn't done a resume for 15, 20 years. I put a resume together. It forced me to do that. And that was micro-acquire. That was Andrew. His wife actually has an agency. So, and that's how it all happened. I was the first outside hire because the others all worked with him in the previous endeavor. So, and then I'm at micro-acquire now, acquire. We've dropped the micro. So it's been a wild, almost coming up on 2 years now.
Okay. So tell me what acquired.com does. Tell me what your role at the company is. And then I'm really also curious, and I'm sure our listeners are as well, is a high flying tech company. You were on a fishing boat. How does one go to the other? Especially, I'm guessing everyone at the company maybe could be your kid.
How dare you? How dare you, sir? But that's, not actually, I think if I started real young, I guess 15, I could have had a kid. So I think the 15 years is the delta there. But who would have thought that I would be the voice of reason? That's definitely, I've never been that guy. But Andrew Gazdecki founded this after his third company was acquired, and it was a sizable exit. And he was 29 years old, and that was not even 4 years ago. It was a company called Business Apps that he scaled and had a very good exit. And going through those endeavors, he realized that true startup founders, and mind you, he was already a social brand. He was very active on social media and Twitter, and had a following, and was an advocate for founders. And so he initially started this as a way for startup founders that otherwise wouldn't know where to start to get introduced to buyers. And it was founders list for free, buyers list for free. And I've joked that it was like when I came on, it was like a dating app. It's like there was no data really being collected. It was swipe left, swipe right, go about your day. And I think there was 500-600 listings at the time. Weren't probably, I think there was a lot of rainbows in there and unicorn chasers and stuff like that. But nonetheless, there was real traction and certainly a need. People were desperate for information and education. So, when I came on initially, it was, what do we do from here? So the first step was to build out an advisory directory to educate the community and really empower the ecosystem to help themselves and on through that journey. I was looking the other day. I think I've had since then so we did the advisory directory. Probably took the first 4 months of my existence there. After we launched that, and it was that October, so I guess a year ago October, and there was 45 various advisors, CPAs to deal folks to M&A guys, attorneys, escrows, valuation, anybody that a founder may need through their journey to call on and be able to help, or they can get full help all the way from the beginning if they needed it. And so after we launched that, I realized I was like, gosh, now we have 2,000 listings. Our onboarding got tight. The buyer onboarding got tight. The founders, the seller onboarding got tight, meaning higher quality, better, more restrictions. And so I went to work trying to find out what these people knew and didn't know and how we can best serve them. When I was at the previous firm or my firm or the one before, I was always very, owner centric, seller centric. So I sit down with them, really understand why are you here? Why are you selling? I really think that often they don't even know why the real reason is they're selling. So really understanding that right out the gate is paramount to your success because everything plots from there. Anyway, so with the ecosystem at Acquire, I just, when listings were coming through our onboarding process and there were certain precipice of gross sales or annual recurring revenue, they would get kicked over to me to have a conversation. And I would, learn, help them see what they really needed help with and then help them. And whether that was, educating them on the various deal, transactional stuff, how to prepare themselves. It ended up being a open source, paint by numbers, right? That was often challenging for founders to get their heads wrapped around that. You need to do some work before you go to market if you want to increase your probability of close. And you think about a founder that's been at it for 7-8 years, which is a long time in this world, right? And they've just blinders on, just doing the list in front of them. So when they start talking to a buyer about some churn or KPI this or line 56 on the P&L, and they don't have that information readily available, and they're looking like a deer in the headlights, right or wrong, they've just devalued their business because it's a perception of a lack of organization that reflects on the operation. So we would, really enforce how important it was to prepare, and so we would show folks how to, or show founders how to, organize their financials, recast a financial statement. We gave them a template for a memorandum to really detail their business. We would give them a checklist to do diligence on their self, create a data room. And you would see them cringing in their seat and hooing and hollering. And I'm just like, look, it's a lot of work, but if you do the lifting now, it will pay dividends down the road. And because you're not only getting the business prepared and doing housekeeping, really, but you're getting your head game ready, right? You got to get your head in the game and ready for those kind of questions. And so I like to use the analogy that a friend of mine, Mike Trevino, told me, or actually it's from his advice from when I was training for a marathon when I turned 50 5 years ago. I said it, okay? I turned 55 on the 16th of January, so a couple weeks ago. I don't feel a day over 50, I swear to God.
No.
And
neither does Siri, I guess.
yeah, she's jealous. But my friend Mike Trevino, who's just an awesome person in general, but also an uber athlete, and has done some inhuman runs and ultra craziness. But he was my trainer, basically my remote trainer, to ask questions about this, that, and the other. And so his sage advice was stick to this plan, put in the work, put in the road work. So it was like I had whatever months ahead and trained this way, and just put in the work and keep to that cadence, and come race day, it'll be a breeze. And I use that analogy here. It's like, what? Do the work now. And when you come race day, which is when you're ready to get into a deal, it should be a breeze.
All right. And with that, though, question for you. These companies that you're helping to get acquired, the size of deals that you're working on, kind of what are all the steps in that process? Maybe you don't need to go too granular, but kind of an overview for our audience of what this takes.
Yeah. Am I speaking to a founder that's thinking about preparing for a sale?
Yeah. Sub 5 million.
I think it's, first really having a, self-reflection. Why are you thinking about that? What is your motivation? First, certainly getting your financials in order, which is, proper P&Ls and balance sheet, putting a presentation together, a slide deck, whatever is for, because it's maybe not on Acquire that they do it, it's elsewhere. Just having a presentation of your operation and then being able to defend whatever you're presenting. And because the reality is there's no hiding. And if you try to embellish something as it relates to the business, it's going to come out and it's going to hurt, and it's going to be down the road. And you've already invested a lot of time, as has the party that's in diligence, and you're not making any friends when they find that out, right? And the old adage is what kills deals, time and surprises. And so we don't want surprises. And so really preparing yourself for that. And that's, being realistic about the market. And if you want to go for a high-end, multiple, great. But, be aware that, are real market conditions, and there's not many fools out there. And then, as far as, do you want to continue on through like a packaging process? Like I said, it's just preparing yourself, due diligence on yourself. One thing that comes up often, and this is probably a good thing for your, particularly technology companies, there's, I talked to a lot of founders, and I looked the other day, it's over 1,500 of those founder calls since I started having them. So it's been a lot of those conversations. That's why my voice is hoarse today. But I talked to a lot of them that are a year, 2 years in, and they're looking to sell, and they've found a product market fit. They're earning real money, maybe $1 million, $2 million to their gross, sellable company, but they're already working on the new shiny thing, right? However, you learn that they've elected for a C Corp structure because they were thinking it was going to be, $100 million company by next year. And so that's the best vehicle for taking on investors and issuing shares. Well, they didn't play the tape forward into a sale, and especially when it's a smaller transaction. On a C Corp, there's a double taxation issue that's quite painful. So it almost demands a stock sale, which a lot of people don't want to take on that risk for a small transaction in a stock sale. So for the listeners that aren't fully aware, so a C Corp, when you sell, and as a founder, after you sell, you want to take the money out of that corporation. Well, the corporation gets a capital gain hit, and then you have to do a distribution to your shareholders, you being one of them, and then you have an ordinary income hit. So, as I've said to founders, you could be very patriotic and just go that route in an asset sale because that's what it's going to end up being. But there's some decisions that need to be made there. So so it's just, there's a lot of things to learn about. Luckily, we've identified a lot of that, a lot of those conversations we've had, a lot of our customer service, which has just logging all of the inquiries and questions. And we're building content around that. We have a full-on creation team, a content team that writes tons of articles. I believe you've been a contributor to at least one or two.
I think we're at 5 now.
You're at 5 now. We got to put you on the masthead. So it's a very. My wife and her friend are thinking about starting a e-commerce dropship type of business, and she was asking me questions, and I said, go there and you can find out everything you need to know. And then if you can't, then come back and ask me questions.
Well, then you can find them a company to acquire on pennies on the dollar too.
We see a lot of that. That's what's been so interesting. I think you were leading into the old guy into the tech world, and coming off of a fishing boat. But what's been the most interesting, I think, out of anything is just the pure scale and the rapidness of scale, and the hunger of these founders. They're just hustlers. It's so fun to see. And I learned a long time ago, the people that everyone has ideas, but the people that are successful they do something about that, and they might have that idea and go try it and fail miserably, but they're going to do the next one and do the next one, and they're going to hit. And it's the action, and these people they're movers, So it's been super fun to see that, but also just the growth of our marketplace. Going from those. It's only not even 2 years, and where we started with a few hundred, and now there's closing in on 3,000 listings, tight listings, good listings, sellable listings, and the buyer pool on our general platform is over 135,000 people. We have our platinum buyers and our VIP buyers. So it's just a very robust marketplace, and it's super exciting to see. And it's really about learning from them, and then sharing that knowledge, institutional knowledge, through content or webinars or what have you with the ecosystem. And we're seeing $25,000 API drops that's being paid. We have a Slack channel that has it's like a NASDAQ ticker for me. When I get a little tired, I'll just look at it, and it deals closed, boom, all day long. I just see it, and it's 5,000, 10,000, 9 million on platform without our help or anything. And it's super exciting to see, and watching our average ARR go up as far as the combined ARR of the listings we're working with. So we have our general marketplace listings where people can go and list and go about it on their own. And then we have other products that are guided, which is a little lighter service where you have a safety net of assistance and all the content and help you need, as well as software. These guys are amazing. It's just shout out to Steve and Dave. They're just building awesome things, and it's amazing to see, because I don't really know. It's like they're like magicians as far as I'm concerned. I just see it. It's like, what? So there's tools on platform to run a deal on your own, but with the safety net of knowing someone's there to save you if you start falling. So, and then our higher value listings go through our managed by acquire, which is where I'm playing most of my days.
So in these transactions, what's your favorite part of them to discuss, or information that our listeners should be aware of in these transactions?
So during the transactions pre-sale, right?
Yeah, basically talk to us about goodwill.
Is that a lead-in question? Yeah, so
that was a softball that just went, okay, here, I'll just put it on the tee in front of you.
It is. I have that conversation with buyers, with sellers, with everyone that is involved. I'm a big believer in the importance of goodwill, and it's an intangible that you can't get a KPI on. But I think it's just as important as your financial performance, as your market fit, as the TAM. It's critical. And that's why the system we've set up here is, and it's the same one I had elsewhere. Very early on, I went the buyer and seller together, and I mean, we've done our job teeing up the buyer or the seller. We've packaged them, we've prepared them, so that part's taken care of. The buyer will make sure that we're not wasting anybody's time there, that they're qualified to have that call. But once we're there, that first call, I don't want to talk about the operations and the P&L and the KPIs. I don't want them talking about that. I want them talking to each other and getting to know each other and building on that goodwill. And it is invaluable because I've been around for a while and I've never seen a deal that's went start to finish without some hurdles and bumps along the road. It's critical in so much that once we're in a transaction, I kind of require that once a week, all the stakeholders get on a call. I don't care when we do it, but once a week, we're going to meet and we're going to go over, just say hi. I don't care if we're talking about the Niners over the weekend, but we're going to check in, say hi, go over the transaction schedule, who's done what's left to do. And it just keeps that continuity of goodwill. Years ago, back in other places, what I had seen was you have a few cheers along the way. Right? You're an agent, you get a listing, yay. You package them up, you go to market. And that's a bit of a celebration. You launch, right?
I was hoping for the sound effect again. Yeah. Yay.
You could do that in post, right? Drop some yays in there, claps. And then you meet buyers, you meet the right buyer, you get into a deal, celebration, and then you get into diligence. Everyone goes to their corners and they don't talk for 60 days, unless there's a problem. And then all of that goodwill that was built up starts crumbling. And so keeping the continuity of that goodwill, throughout the transaction is super important. And it's been, I could stand by that, 100%. But, you asked the question about what's the most, the goodwill portion is certainly fun. I am like in the catbird seat in a sense, right? I mean, I get to talk to founders all day long, every day. And just some fascinating, just some really amazing things these guys are doing. So men and women, it's wild. And it's also global. We're talking to people all over the world. And the digital nomads that are like calling from wherever they had their laptop that day. It's just so amazing what technology has been able to afford people. It's just amazing.
That goodwill that's built up over the transaction. When everything's signed, goodwill die there? Does it matter? Is it important for post-transaction?
Well, I would hope that the parties get along, because even if it's a very short transition, you're still working with somebody. You're effectively in a partnership for a period of time. And it might be longer than shorter. So yes, the goodwill is important. And it's also, if you have a good relationship there and you've built that up, I mean, gosh, if I sold you a business, and then 6 months later, the training's over, that's done, everything's done, but you got in the weeds and there's something emergent, you should be able to call me and I should be able to give you an answer. I mean, that's part of it, right? And yeah, I mean, it's critical. I don't know if there's any way you could put a dollar value on it, but it's up there with the other big ones.
What questions do you hear often, either buyers asking sellers or sellers asking buyers?
Sellers don't ask buyers nearly enough questions. And it scares me sometimes because when we're there, we take care of that and we moderate any of that because we're on every call, at least the ones I'm involved with.
I guess what questions should they be asking then?
Well, they should be asking, sellers, and I actually wrote an article on this as well. Diligence is a two-way street, and diligence starts for you the first conversation you have. You don't have to wait to due diligence period once you're in an agreement. So founders, you're talking to a buyer, ask them, are you funded? Do you have a dedicated fund? Do you plan on getting institutional financing? How are you going to fund this thing? And that should be a very early question. And I talk to founders every single week that were in a deal before they came to us that they got dragged through the mud with an unfunded fund. So it's a private equity group. They're great. I'm sure they're great people, but they go and they package the thing up and then they go shopping. They have investors that they rely on, but it's at the investor's whim, right? So it's painful.
The search funds out there, it's I get emails all the time of, I'm looking for this company, this, and I'll find the person on their LinkedIn. It's just one guy that just graduated maybe Harvard Business School or graduated some MBA program, not connected to a fund, or just says I have all this access to capital. And it's crazy because 5 minutes of due diligence, you're like, this guy's all fluff. He's just gonna get an LOI signed and then go out to his alumni network and try to raise capital there. But it's odd how many times I'll talk to someone and they'll do zero due diligence on who is making the offer to buy them.
I'm going to turn the table. Why do you think that is?
Because they see the offer and it's higher than everyone else, and they get excited and want to believe it.
Rose-colored glasses, man. They just want. They're creating a reality that's fictitious.
I was on one call not too long ago where this guy, he was introduced to me by a contact. He's like, Sean, just talk to my friend. He just got an offer for like $9.4 million for his company. And that was just eyeballing it. You're like, dude, that's 2x anything possible for this thing easily. And he's like, yeah, I got this offer. It's an unsolicited offer. I got this email. We had a call. It was great. And I don't need an investment banker. I don't need any help. But if this doesn't go through, maybe we'll go out again. But this is going to be great. And I was like, what's the name of this group? And he's like, I can't tell you, not in day. I'm like, okay, no problem. I was like, but you've done research on this, because, the offer you're telling me, it's pretty high, don't you think? He's like, well, there's no way of finding out if this guy actually, or if this private equity group has the money or not. I'm like, there's a ton of ways to find out. What are you talking about? Just ask. Like, I don't know.
It's unfortunate. And it's people want to believe what they want to believe. And there's another net effect of something like the scenario you just laid out, is that when that person comes to reality, and realizes that buyer group doesn't have funds, so they go elsewhere, they're still stuck on that number is nailed into their brain, and it's very hard for them to come off of that. And so I've had to get creative with various ways of handling that. And, one way is, okay, fine, we'll go to market at that price, but you have to agree to me now that if we don't get X amount of NDA signed and this, that, and the other by 30 days from now, you're going to come down to some number where I can sell it. Otherwise, we can't help you, people, what's the adage? I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear.
Here's a question for you. With the people coming to you with this, big number in the sky, how often do people approach you and they go, my friend or someone I know, or I saw this online, their company sold at this and my company is so much better for these reasons. And they don't factor in when that happened. They don't factor in any of the terms or conditions. They don't even know any of the details of the transaction. It was cash rollover, or there's like, this person sold their company for this much money. I think mine's better, so I want this much above that, and I won't accept anything less.
I wish you well. It's how, you hit it. You don't know anything about that. You don't know if there was some proprietary IT, some awesome, tech that's built around there that they developed. Maybe there's awesome contracts that are super sticky that this acquirer has been wanting to get. Maybe that's right. Maybe it's 90% contingent over 5 years or something that's unrealistic, but they're hitting the headline. So yeah, people like that, you could tell them, I don't get offended. It's a reality. It happens. But all we could do is, tell them the reality and give them our best pitch as to what is real and what's not. Luckily, with the way that we've the managed by acquire that we through our advisory, I always want to align with the founder first as far as the value range, and I say, I think it's going to be between this and this. Does that, if that straddles your expectations, then we'll go to market. We go to market on price by design, because I want our VIPs and I want our high-end buyers I want the market to speak to us. And that also satisfies the founder that they're not leaving any money on the table. And, the way our process works, it's kind of a 3-tier process. VIPs get it first, and then followed to we have another tier of buyers that's closing on 800 called platinum buyers. those two tiers get it first, and we'll learn a lot from them. If anybody gets a sim, they sign an NDA, they get the sim. If they pass, that's fine. But why'd you pass? Can you give me some information there? So then if we do have to go targeted marketing, or if we have to go to the general marketplace, which is quite noisy, we're better informed and we have a better sense of the realities of the marketplace.
Where in the preparation to sell a company do founders have the most problems?
I think it's really, that is as it relates to that founder or that founder or that founder, right? But if you were to say like the recurring general where they have the most problems, I think that they think it's just a heavy process, which it is. And we're taking out so much weight as to the arduous process from a typical investment bank or M&A process. We're expediting that using tools and technology and software. However, it's a distraction and it's a stressor. So I think that is one thing, when you're getting your business ready, you also have to look at your calendar. Make yourself available, and you have to realize that it's not a few conversations and you're going to get a suitcase full of money. It's a process, and it's a long process. And if you don't ask those questions up front, you might have to do that process again because you're going to get halfway through and it's going to flop out. I think that's the biggest thing is people start to, who don't know what a process is, when they hear about it, it's like, oh, that's longer than I thought.
With that, you mentioned price. Is that the main reason, or what's the main reason? Or maybe we'll take price off the table. What would you say is the number one reason why a company doesn't sell?
Well, financials. The first thing is financials, right? If your financials are going the wrong direction, or if it's discovered that you've done some things that, preparing for a sale, you're getting crafty, and maybe I'm not spending that amount on marketing this last quarter to kind of artificially increase your EBITDA, or SD, suddenly discovered earnings, right? If there's any, going back to a comment I made earlier about just being, it's all going to come out. There's you have to be genuine. You have to be truthful. If you're not and you get caught, it's done. It's over. I think that the deal will fall out in the financials, or if there's poor financial reporting. And then the next is if the tech isn't up to date and secure. And then if there's, we try to identify very early on, like what the churn is, what the retention is, if there's recurring, because that changes quite a bit. So we're even implementing now where right up front and center, all the works are going to be right there in bullet points. So then, it's just our marketplace is so busy now that, what a good problem to have. Yeah. But we just launched one 2 weeks ago, and it was like 85 NDAs in, and it's a lot to just sift through and manage. But if you have, all of that stuff up in front as far as the churn and the, it's actually only 60% SaaS and 40% something else. Having that up front and center will help just narrow down to the right person. And that's really inevitably what we're doing. We're trying to get the highest probability of helping that founder get sold, and in a timely fashion. We don't want to have to do that a bunch of times, right?
So before wrapping up, your company acquired, it focuses on its SaaS companies. What is happening right now in that sector, in the industry? What trends are we seeing?
Well, it's not just purely SaaS. We do agencies and marketplace, e-commerce, cryptos. It's all there. So anything technology. As far as my work, it's pure SaaS. And what am I seeing there? As far as in whole, I'm not seeing, with the market corrections and all of the dust up, there's still a lot of activity. So I think, what am I seeing in whole? That there's massive opportunity in this space. It's not stopping. It's amazing. There's an incredible amount of dry powder still sitting out there. So it's a good spot to be in. And if a founder's looking to sell, now's not a bad time. People might be otherwise disillusioned, but it's we're active. on platform alone is like 50 million a month in transactions. It's happening. So I'm seeing a lot of side hustles, like maybe some people that haven't thought about it before. They're picking up little side projects, side hustles. So it's ripe. I mean, it's a good environment.
Fantastic. And Paul, if anyone wants to find out more information about you, what you're doing, the company you're at, what's the best way to go about doing it?
Just go to our website, acquire.com, and we're all there. And my contact's there. I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter. I can't claim that I even know my Twitter handle, but I'm there. So come find me.
If Paul remembers it before the interview goes live, we'll have it in the show notes.
But yeah, thanks for having me. It's awesome to see what you've been doing here as well. So I'll be here for 275. How about that?
Wait, what?
275 episode.
All right.
275.
We'll get you back then. 100 episodes from now, people. Everyone hear that? Paul has promised, even though he's going to be a big shot by then, probably on a boat someplace in the Caribbean, he's going to fly back here for the 200.
Let me tell you one little funny on the way out here. That boat that I was on, and everyone could look it up. It was called the Alaska Ranger. And it was, years after I'd been off the boat, and it was a tin can when I was on there. So this boat, 185 foot factory trawler, and we'd be all out through the Aleutian Islands and the Bering Sea and Gulf of Alaska. And, but it was a durable boat. It was like a bobber. We've been in some crazy seas. The thing finally sunk about 8 years ago, and it was the largest Coast Guard rescue in history. And just amazing. You guys should Google it because it's just amazing to see. And the Coast Guard people are awesome. So yeah, my boat that I was on is at the bottom of the ocean.
Jesus. Okay.
Yeah.
Check this out. Hopefully you didn't know everyone you knew saved.
It's unfortunately the captain and first mate and engineer that was on with me perished with the boat, but they pulled out, it was a large, they pulled out like 35 guys out of the water. And it's hairball water up there. So it was, amazing that they did what they did. I think it was like an 8-hour rescue over like 3 miles or something in the Bering Sea with 40-foot seas. That's Coast Guard. High five.
All right. I'm going to look that up. If we find it, we'll put it in the show notes as well. Okay. So for our audience out there, go to thesiliconvalleypodcast.com. Once again, it's thesiliconvalleypodcast.com. Connect with me there. Connect with me on LinkedIn at Sean Flynn. Find out what I'm up to these days. And with that, Paul, I want to thank you one more time for being our guest on this week's episode of the Silicon Valley Podcast.
Right on.